Conspiracy theories are nothing new, but one of America's largest, longest, and highly contended debates still surrounds the assassination of JFK. Now, 60 years after that fateful day, a Secret Service agent who witnessed the shooting is releasing his memoir, which sheds doubt on the single bullet theory. On this episode of the Politics of HollyWeird, we'll discuss the book that is causing such controversy before it even hits the shelves. Hi, I'm Kelly Ballard, Liberty Nation's national correspondent and host of this show, The Politics of HollyWeird. Whether on or off screen, Hollywood can always be counted on to keep us entertained. And this is especially true when it comes to politics. And that's what my show is all about, shining the spotlight on Tinseltown's A-listers. Do you believe the Warren Commission report that there was only one shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald, and that one magic bullet went through the president and into Texas Governor John Connally Jr.? Well, if not, you might want to check out Paul Landis's new memoir called The Final Witness. In that book, he describes much of the same events that we've already heard, however, with one huge difference, and that relates to the magic bullet. Landis was only 24 years old when he became a secret agent in 1959, making him the youngest agent ever at that time. Because of his boyish looks and young age, his code name was Debut. He worked his way up and became guardian of the Kennedy children, and then later of Jacqueline Kennedy herself. So, on November 22nd, 1963, he was part of the motorcade, the president's motorcade in Dallas. He rode in the Secret Service follow-up car, which had the code name Halfback, which means he was only about 15 feet away from the president when Kennedy was shot. Landis's account is pretty much the same as what we've read before, except for one big difference. When he went to the limousine to help get President Kennedy out of the car at the hospital, he found 2 bullets, but then he also found a third bullet embedded in the back seat of the limousine, right behind where President Kennedy was sitting. He said that he pocketed that bullet because he was afraid people might take it as a souvenir. He took it into the hospital, according to him, and then he put it on President Kennedy's stretcher. The idea was that he hoped the doctors and investigators would be able to use the bullet to figure out what had happened, where the shots had come from, or whatever. Well, it was very chaotic at that time, and he had never told his supervisor or anyone else that he had put that bullet there. That same bullet was found later in Connally's stretcher, and the doctors assumed that it had fallen out while they had been working on the governor. Landis told the New York Times, "There was nobody there to secure the scene, and that was a big, big bother to me. All the agents that were there were focused on the president. A crowd was gathering. This was all going on so quickly, and I was just afraid that it was a piece of evidence that I realized right away, very important, and I didn't want it to disappear or get lost. So it was, Paul, you've got to make a decision, and I grabbed it." Landis had been so traumatized from the events that he quit the Secret Service just a few months later. He did give a report to the Secret Service, but for some reason, the Warren Commission never interviewed him, and he never told anyone about that bullet that he found and put on the president's stretcher. He was so traumatized that he did not read anything about the assassination. He did not read any conspiracy theories, watch television shows, or anything, because he just could not handle it. So it was about 50 years later that he finally started dealing with his suppressed memories and decided he needed to come forward. Now, according to investigators, this magic bullet passed through Kennedy's back, then entered the governor's right shoulder where it struck him in the rib, and then exited under his right nipple. And then after that, the same bullet continued through Connally's right wrist and into his left thigh. While the doctors agree that this could happen and cause all that damage, skeptics point out that this mostly intact bullet had only lost 1 or 2 grains out of its original weight of 160 or 161 grains. Now, James Robinault, a lawyer and historical author who helped Landis with his memories, told the New York Times, "If what he says is true, which I tend to believe, it is likely to reopen the question of a second shooter, if not even more. If the bullet we know as the magic or pristine bullet stopped in President Kennedy's back, it means that the central thesis of the Warren Report, the single bullet theory, is wrong." Well, not everyone is on board with Landis's accounting, including his partner, Clint Hill, the agent who jumped into the back of the limousine when the president was shot. In a 2014 email he sent Landis, he warned him that speaking out would have many ramifications. Hill has written several books of his own accountings as well. So in an email to the New York Times, he said this, "I believe it raises concerns when the story he is telling now, 60 years after the fact, is different than the statements he wrote in the days following the tragedy. In my mind, there are serious inconsistencies in his various statements/stories." The assassination of JFK has been a source of debates and conspiracy theories for years. People have accused the government, the CIA, the mafia, even Lyndon B. Johnson, and other countries of planning the murder. Larry Sabato, a historian out of the University of Virginia, told CNN, "This is likely where Americans started losing faith and trust in the government." He said, "Our own government and its top agencies gave people plenty of reasons to doubt what they've said about Kennedy's murder. In 1963, we bought pretty much anything the authorities told us. That's how we were raised. Now, though, after decades of government lying about Vietnam, Watergate, Iran-Contra, 9/11, Afghanistan, Iraq, and 1,000 other things, can you blame people for not buying what the Warren Commission was selling?" Well, if you want to read more, The Final Witness will be available October 10th, published by Chicago Review Press. That's it for this episode of HollyWeird. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to visit LibertyNation.com for more HollyWeird articles, original reporting and analysis, and videos and podcasts from our staff. Until next time.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at LibertyNation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are LibertyNation.com.